And welcome back, or just welcome if you're new here. My name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal. And welcome to Shark Week. For those who haven't noticed, in the community tab of this channel, I put like 3 polls, because it only allows 5 choices. But I put like 3 polls of various genres, just to get a feel of what kind of genre people like the most or want to see the most. And yeah, so this is Shark Week. I went through my collection where I picked out 7 shark movies that I own, and very interestingly, of the 7 that I chose, 6 of them I've never seen before. So I was kind of excited because I knew that they would be first time watches for me. Now, a lot of people may go, you had 6 movies in your collection, you own them, but you've never seen them. Well, although possibly the only people, if any other collectors watch this video, that's very, very common amongst collectors. I've been to lots of collectors' channels, and they say that quite frequently. You know, here's a movie, I've had it for a year and a half, and I finally got around to watching it. That's just the way that we are. And if you think me finding 6 movies that I have not seen, I have currently a little over 2,000. I broke the 2,000 mark. So I can go and find 200 movies in my collection that I have not seen yet. We get around to it eventually. That's just the life of a collector. So I was excited because 6 of these movies out of the 7 I chose were movies that I had never seen before. So they were going to be first time watches, and I would get to check them off the list finally. And we are going to begin tonight with Shark Night. I had never seen this before. This is a first time watch. I believe that it was recommended by a girl named Destiny, who used to be on a channel that I watched. And yeah, she said that she liked it and that it was a good movie despite, some people not liking it. And so that is actually because of her that I ended up buying this one, or was okay to buy this one. So, yeah. Now, Shark Night was released in 2011, and it was directed by David R. Ellis, written by Will Hayes, and it stars Sara Paxton, Dustin Milligan, and Chris Carmack. Yes, it certainly is. I always read the information, and then I pull up my screensaver. So, yeah. Now, Shark Night, it opens on this lake, and we see a guy and a girl playing around, sort of like the beginning of Jaws, except that was the beach, and this is a lake. So they're playing around, and he goes back after playing around with her a little bit in the water. He goes back to the camper, to the caravan, and while he's in there, she's going to get her top that he had pulled and threw off, and she gets eaten by a shark in a lake. And you're like, okay, sharks in a lake, okay. So we then get to see 3 of our main characters, Gordon, Nick, and Malik, are all arguing in their little dorm room, and we get introduced to them as they start talking about they are going to go to Sarah's private island home for a celebration because he had a B plus or something like that on his grades, so on his thesis or something like that. So he was very happy, and they were going to do that. They then stop and pick up Maya, Beth, Blake, and Sarah, of course, as they're all going to go to her lake. Lake Crosby is where they're going. So on the way, we get introduced to what we find out later is integral characters in the movie, and that is these 2 really horrid rednecks. One of them's named Red, which is very appropriate. Dude has meth mouth. I'm talking. He's got like no teeth. It's really yeah. They did an extreme caricature of a redneck, and Dennis actually looked pretty good, but he did have this big scar around his face, and him and Sara seemed to know each other, and he calmed down a little bit. They said some very racist stuff, and almost got into a fight with Malik and Maya, and Sara walks up, and Dennis immediately softens, and everything is like chilled out, and you can tell that they know each other. So they go on to the boat ramp, or that was the boat ramp, and they got on a boat, and they start, heading across the island, which is like really beautiful scenery. I mean, I would love to have that lake house, and I'm not a fan of the water, but I would love to have that lake house. She's got a really beautiful house and it's an island of its own. It's not like huge or anything, maybe a city block with her house right in the middle of it, but it's very beautiful. So they go on to her, they all jump on the boat and they go on to her island. Now, a neat thing then occurs, and that is that all of a sudden, out of a little alcove, a sheriff's boat comes running out with like cherries and berries going. And it was the neatest thing because they went on like a car chase, but it was on the water. So, and Sara, she's driving and she like floors it. So they have this like, it's a car chase on the water. And I remember thinking, have I ever seen that before? I, of course, know that they have like marine boats, sheriff's boats and stuff like that. But I just don't recall ever seeing a boat chase like that looked like it was interweaving in the street. So it was really cool. I really liked that boat chase. I thought that was really neat. In my experience, I had just never seen anything like that before. And it seemed exactly like a car chase in a crime movie. So that was pretty cool. So we get all this really beautiful scenery, and they get there and the cool chase. And then when you think that, she pulls up to her dock and the sheriff pulls up and he gets out and they actually start laughing and stuff like that. So, the sheriff even takes a couple of beers. So, yeah. Now, it's then that we see some banter, because they all start settling in. They start playing at the beach, the water's edge, and we get a bunch of scenes of that. And then we also notice that the guy Eric, he likes Sara, and he doesn't know her though very well. The others are all her friend circle. So he asked Malik, like, what's up with her? And he says that we don't know. She's very mysterious. We've known her for 3 years of college now, and she has never dated anyone. So you're kind of left to go, well, that's strange. She's very pretty. And so, yeah, there's a little bit of mystery there. Now, we get to see Malik skiing. They, like part of all these water sports, that they show. And Malik is skiing, ski-boarding. He's on a board, not skis. And a shark gets after him. And he ends up losing, the shark is stalking him. And it ends up breaking the board, knocking him off of it. And then they are looking for him, like, where is he? And all of a sudden, though, Sara, who's at the lakeshore, he comes walking out of the water, and then you realize he has no arm. Like, his arm from right here has been bitten off. So you can imagine what ensues. They all start screaming, and they're trying to help him. So yeah, they're all of a sudden, Eric is pre-med, 3 years of med. So He's the one who can help. He's the one with the most medical knowledge. All of a sudden, though, he like takes off and jumps into the water, and you're like, what is he doing? He goes out there and he finds his arm and he brings it back, and a shark gets after him as well, and he barely makes it to the dock. And they're like, we've got to get him out of here. Of course, they don't have any cell phone. They have no signal out on that island. So they start trying to figure out how to stabilize him, how to get him some help. And they end up, let's see, who is it? Remember, these are first time watches, so I will be using my notes more than usual. They're also, kind of freaked out. It's like, well, what the fuck is a shark doing in the lake? And that answers one of your questions, because the reason that the shark is alive in the lake is because it is not a freshwater lake. It is a saltwater lake. So that's one of the answers. So Gordon and Blake stay while the rest of them, Gordon, Blake, and Beth, they stay while the rest of them get on the boat and take off to try to get him help. Now, the boat is then attacked multiple times by a shark. And these are big sharks. And Maya is knocked off of the boat. They throw her the life ring, and she grabs a hold of it, and they start pulling her like they're skiing, trying to get away from the shark. She doesn't make it, though. The shark catches up and gets her. Now, that one, I really wish they could have showed that attack, but they didn't. But we'll get to the PG-13 aspects of this later. The boat has become so damaged from these sharks attacking the boat that it ends up running into one of the gas station docks and explodes. And they all manage to get out and back to the home. So Dennis and, they're like shooting off flares because they're basically stuck on this island. And now they don't even have that boat. All they've got is a couple wave runners. So Dennis and Red show up on their own boat. And you assume that they saw the flares or whatever. And they start coming, to try to help the situation. So Beth goes with them because she is the one freaking out the most, and she does not want to be here. And then Gordon is like, I'm not letting her go with these two psychos alone. So he goes, which was it wasn't a good choice, Gordon. And I hated Gordon. You've always got to have the one jerk ass and it's not because he's like evil or anything like that. You don't dislike him because he's a villain. You dislike him because he's a dumb jock asshole. And he is the one that does that role in this movie. So they take off with them, and then we get to hear a little between, Eric is talking with Sara, and you get to hear a little of the backstory, what this is going on between those two. Well, it turns out that they had dated for a while before she left for college 3 years ago. And she thought that he tried to kill her. She didn't understand. She was going off to college, so she broke up with him. And right before she left for college, they went on one last little dive where something went wrong with her air, and this made her really suspicious because she couldn't breathe. She started, drowning down there. And when she turned to him for help, like right over there, and he looks her right in the face, very close to her, she said that when she told him that her oxygen was gone, it was almost as though he knew. And instead of coming to help her, where you share the oxygen, instead, when she asked that or motioned for him to do that, he just backed away and turned and, so she managed to get out very scared, and she got up onto the boat. And when she got up onto the boat, that was in her mind, is that did he just try to kill me? And regardless of whether he just tried to kill me, did he just try to let me drown in there? So she jerked the boat into like let's go gear, and he comes crawling up on the back, but she didn't see him, and when she put it into it cut his face. The propeller hit his face. So she of course went and got help, and that's where those big scars on his face came from. So we kind of now know what went on between them. So back on the boat, Beth and Gordon are talking about the sharks, and we get a little bit from Red, who suggests that when hurricanes come, they open the floodgates, and that sharks could get into the gate to the lake that way. So that was one explanation. Or, and then he turned around and he said, "Or you never know." And that was, of course, your signal to go, it probably wasn't hurricanes, that's for sure. So while they're out there talking about, because now you're flashing between these two things, Sarah's house and the boat with them on there. So when we flash back, we see Malik come out. He's been stabilized now. And this is actually, it's not like the movie's realistic anyway. But this is the part that was like almost just a teeny tiny bit. I understood, but he comes out, and he's been stabilized, and he's got a harpoon looking like, Poseidon. And Eric is like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm going to go kill the shark that ate my arm off." And Eric is like, that's really not something you should be doing. It's going out there into the water. So, and he's like, "How are you going to find it anyway?" And he's like, "I'm not going to find it. It's going to find me." So he walks out into the water, and of course the blood and all, and a big hammerhead shark comes. Now, you saw this attack before, and that was not a hammerhead. That was like probably a bull shark, it looked like, that attacked him, or possibly a mako. It looked more like a bull shark that attacked him, but it damn sure wasn't a hammerhead, And so they have the hammerhead fight, him and the shark fight, and he stabs the hammerhead. So, they pull it up on shore. That was a little out there. The scene was filmed wonderfully. It was just, yeah, right. Yeah, okay. After you've just had your arm eaten off a couple hours ago, you're gonna show down with the hammerhead. That makes a lot of sense. But the first thing that Nick says when they do get the shark pulled up is he was like, "But when I was out there, like when I got your arm, the shark swam right past me, and it was not a hammerhead, So even they are starting to realize that not only are there sharks in the lake, but there's more than one kind of shark in the lake. And so are you as the viewer. So one of the neat things they find out about it, though, is when they turn it over, it's not only got a tracker on it, but it's got a tracker cam on it. And they're like, "What is that?" And he says it's a tracker and it's a camera, like they use in Shark Week, from the shark's perspective. So, okay, what the fuck is this shark doing with a tracker and a cam on it? So back to Dennis and Red, they're out there, and we find out kind of what's going on. Because Dennis and Red stop the boat out there in the middle, and Gordon and Beth are like, "Why are you stopping the boat? What's the problem? Take us to help, please. I thought we were going to get the cops." So that's when you find out that Dennis and Red are actually part of this, and they admit that they are the ones that put the sharks in here. And you're like, what the fuck? So he then says, he tells Gordon to get in the water. And Gordon says no, and he ends up like shooting him a flesh wound. And Gordon falls into the water, and sharks come after him, of course. And Dennis and Beth is like, what the fuck? And he has basically admitted that they are doing this. They have put the sharks in the water. And you still don't know exactly why yet, because the sheriff will explain that later. But Gordon manages to swim away, and he manages to get on this cypress tree. Cypresses grow up out of the water. And he manages to get up on this cypress tree, and I nearly flew over the side of this chair here. It was definitely a Deep Blue Sea moment. It was good. That was a good jump scare, because I mean, if you're a horror collector, you've seen so many horror movies, you have this sixth sense that tells you this is a danger moment. Something could happen about right now. And even though that alarm bell was going off in the back of my head, it usually doesn't help. I was prepared, but you're never prepared for the exact moment, because you can't do it. So that shark jumps up out that water and eats Gordon, and it's like, that was a Samuel L. Jackson ode right there. And just like that one, it scared the absolute shit out of me. I was like, oh, yes, hallelujah. You got me, bitch. That was good. So, Gordon is gone, which, like I said, I didn't like him, but then again, you weren't supposed to like him. He was a doof-ass, but he certainly didn't deserve anything bad. So, after, they had told him that, okay, they found that back at Sarah's. Oh, and back at, we go and have the Hammerhead talk. Then we end up back, and now they make Beth. So now they've killed Gordon, and now they've got Beth, and they make her strip. And they have this, like, shark cage pen looking thing on the side of the boat, and it's got all these weird little neon colors in it, And he tells her to look at it, and she looks down, and he starts telling her that these are things called, that this is the newest species that he had caught. And I guess he was getting ready to release into the lake. And these are called a cookie cutter shark. And they're little sharks about like that eat their own teeth. They swallow their own teeth for calcium, because mostly everything they eat is flesh and blubber. So I don't know. I'm sure I've seen it on some animal show, but I've never paid attention to these things. But after they've made her strip to her bra and panties, they actually throw her in there, and that's a pretty ugly death scene. It'd be like getting pecked to death by, ducks or something. So she is killed by these cookie cutters, and you can see that they are filming it. And so Red and Dennis are watching her being killed by these cookie cutter sharks, and it's almost in a visual YouTube type presentation. And you're like, you start thinking, are these guys, like, these are snuff films? They're making snuff films with sharks? Is that what they're doing? And that's sort of the thing that you get. Now, Blake, he decides, kind of in a freaking out moment, Blake decides that he is going to get Malik help, because nobody's coming. So he gets Malik on the back of a wave runner, and they take off. And he's like, well, I'm going to take the wave runner, and we're going to go, and I'm going to get him, to the shore and get him help. Now, of course, they start being stalked, because you have to remember that Blake is still got blood. And, Malik. So Malik has still got blood from his arm. And so Blake is driving like a bat out of hell. And, of course, blood is leaking into the water. And here comes these sharks. They're after the wave runner. Now, Malik, he notices that. I mean, he's near dead anyway, but he notices it, and he notices the shark coming at them, and he's like, I'm not letting you sacrifice yourself. I'm not taking you with me, is what he said. So he undoes, because Blake has him tied, he undoes himself and lets himself fall into the water. Blake, of course, realizes this and tries to turn around, but of course, Malik gets ravaged, and Blake starts then trying to get the hell out of there, and he's going as fast as he can, and there is an exquisite, my alarm wasn't even going off at this time. Blake's death was very, with Gordon, my alarm was going off, but it still scared the shit out of me. But with Blake's, I did not. My alarm wasn't going. Maybe I was distracted by the chase and what had just happened. But they got one over on me because I did not see what happened to Blake coming, which is like a great white. And it's the way that it was filmed. Comes up out of that water and just like snacks him right off the top of that wave runner. And I did not see that coming at all. And so that was a pretty damn good one too. So the sheriff, he arrives at Sarah's house, and and so she's like, well, okay, we're finally going to get some help now. And he acts really sincere. He's like calling on his radio, and he's like, we got to get I've got the state troopers coming. I've got, all of this stuff, and she's feeling relieved about it all. And she goes into the kitchen, and he had gone over here to make him a drink in the bar room, and he had left his radio there in the kitchen. So Sarah's in there getting something to drink herself, and she hears on the radio, and it's Dennis. And Dennis is advising the sheriff that he's taken care of Gordon and Beth, and that they were fantastic scenes, and that now if he could just get that little blonde bitch, for a grand finale. So she's like, what the fuck? She gets this big butcher knife, and you hear the sheriff going, hey, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I'll be there in a second. And she goes out there with every intention of stabbing that motherfucker, which is exactly what I'd have done. And she even like takes a dive for it. And I'll be damned if Dennis isn't right behind her with a, and knocks her out of the way, stops her from stabbing him, the sheriff, and then darts her, tranks her, knocks her out. So now that, all of this has happened, Sarah is put in a cage on the boat, like a shark cage. She's put in a cage on the boat, and the sheriff has got Nick at his dock. He has taken Nick to the dock where he has him tied up to a chair, and there's a bunch of tiger sharks underneath in this sort of pool. So the sheriff starts explaining to Nick what this is all about. So he explains that what they are doing by telling him that hasn't he ever seen the internet? Hasn't he seen TV? Did he know what the most popular shows were? They were shows like Shark Week. And that they had decided that they weren't going to be poor lake trash, that they were going to make money. And they were going to make money by stocking this lake, which is an interesting idea, that they were going to stock this lake because, Dennis is a professional diver. He's the sheriff, so, they could do all of this clandestine. That they were going to stock this lake with various species of shark, and that they were tagging them and putting cams on them all, and that they were basically making snuff films with sharks, which is an interesting idea. um, Very unique. And that they would be then selling the footage and becoming, quite wealthy at it. So during one of their little tussles, though, Nick had managed to knock over a petrol can, so there was gas going on the floor. And the sheriff lifts him up on a rope, and then dunking a witch, and puts him down in the pool, and then you see all these sharks head on, and then he pulls him back up. That boy is scared shitless, right? So he's got a lighter in his pocket, though, and he uses the lighter. Well, how he distracts the sheriff is the sheriff likes glam metal, which I thought was really cute. All during the movie, whenever you saw the sheriff, he was listening to Rat and Great White. Kind of interesting there. White Snake, all the glam metal bands, is the hair metal bands. That's what he was listening to. So I thought it was really cool of Nick, because he needed to distract the sheriff. And at the moment, the sheriff was listening to Rat. And he was going to lower him into the thing. And he asked him, he said, the sheriff takes requests. What music, what song, he talked about how he was metal. And I thought that was cute. And so he asked Nick, did he have any requests? Nick was very smart, because Nick, at least he had the knowledge to get it right, because he turned around and he said, Guns N' Roses. So when he said Guns N' Roses, the sheriff was like, oh, you know what you're doing? I know what you're doing. You're making me love you. And I was like, oh my God. So while the sheriff turned around to hunt for the Guns N' Roses CD to put it on, he managed to burn the tie, the zip tie that was on his wrist, and then threw the lighter at the petrol can, which started the sheriff on fire. He managed to get out the chair. The sheriff came after him, and the sheriff fell into the pool. And he then shut the cage, the lid. And the sheriff kept coming up and trying to get out, but it was too late. He was burnt up, number one, and then the tigers got him and ripped him to shreds. So we then go back to the boat, where you get to see, Dennis and Sara having their moment, where she's like, it was just an accident, and what were you trying to do to me anyway? It's not like, what was going on? I've apologized, I've never even dated anyone since then. It's traumatized me and stuff like that. Well, he doesn't give a shit. You can see where his anger is from. Now, Nick, since he had gotten loose, he had swam out to the boat. So he turns around and is like, drop it, And, because, what did he have? Dennis had like a knife or something. But he was like, drop it. Leave her alone. Let her go. And he's got a gun to Red's head, which, I would have fired it just because. But Dennis ends up like, oh really? Is that how we're gonna play? Oh, I'm so sorry then. Okay. I give up, whatever. All as a distraction for him to throw that knife. And he threw that knife and just impaled Red. So he was definitely not giving a shit about Red. So Red is thrown into the water with a big butcher knife in him. And him and Nick go at it. And you sort of have the boss fight between them two. So, before he can stop Dennis, though, Dennis releases the cage down into the water. Now, she doesn't have any, scuba equipment on or anything. So Nick ends up jumping in with the bang stick. And so he jumps in with the bang stick. And Sara is trying to breathe. Dennis is trying to kill Nick. It's just this big giant fight. when all of a sudden here comes the great white that was what they called Mama, that they always let out. So Mama was coming, and how did he do it? He managed to, while Nick and Dennis were fighting, she ends up grabbing from outside the cage. She grabs Dennis's head and she like bangs it back on the head, on the cage a couple of times, and Nick gets knocked out of the way. And when the shark starts coming, Dennis tries to get out of the way, but she had also tied his leg to the cage. So while she had banged his head, she had also reached down there and tied a rope around his leg. So he couldn't get away. And the shark ripped him to shreds, you know. So that was pretty poetic. Then Nick, the shark, of course, then tried to get through the cage to get to Sara, and Nick come up beside it with the bang stick and blew its brains out. So he managed to get her out. They get back up on the boat where he revives her and all his goody two shoes, and everything is, you know, done. And the movie ends, and they are the only two that survived. Like, everybody is dead. I just thought of that, actually. They were the only two that survived. Like, everybody in this movie. The sheriff, Dennis, Red, Blake, Maya, Beth, Gordon. They're all dead. Everybody died but these two in the whole damn movie. That's pretty cool. But, so, yeah. Then, and I'm so glad that I didn't, like, cut it off. I guess I got up and got something to drink or something like that, and the credits were rolling. I think I liked the song that was playing. The song was really cool that was playing. And so I got up and got something to drink, I think, and the credits were rolling. I liked that song. I was listening to that song. And then the credits went off, and there is, and I will put it in the description, the cast made a parody rap song called Shark Bite, performed by and sung by, which is kind of neat, the Shark, the Shark Night cast. So Nick, Sara, all of them, Gordon, Malik, Blake, even Dennis, all of them perform this parody. It's they've all got like grills in their mouth and stuff like that. And I hate, people out there, I hate rap music. I hate hip hop. I hate hip hop and rap. But this is a parody, and it was so hilarious. It was so funny and so good. Yeah, so I will put the link down there. Of course, it's not on YouTube because there's one bit of nudity in this movie, even though it's only PG-13. There's one bit of nudity, and that is that they do show Blake's butt back at college. He is a nude model, and they show a very long, nice butt shot of Blake. And that's also in the video. So YouTube, of course, isn't going to allow that. Although if you wanted to, you can go and look up prostate exams on YouTube, and you can see stuff you do not want to see. But they won't allow a video that shows a boy's butt. Yet you can go watch surgical. I've never understood that at all. But what do they call it? I'm going to get off track here, but what do they call that? There's a type of thing, a French something, a type of thing where it's like a bikini waxing, but is that what they call it? A French bikini waxing or something like that? But my brother sent me a link, and he was like, go do this. And I'm like, what? And I looked at it, and it was a link. I mean, it was a video on YouTube of this French bikini waxing thing or something. And they show everything. This dude is laying there completely naked. They show his penis, his ass, everything. They do the thing and It's, but you can't show a video with Blake's butt in it, but you can show, I don't know. I don't understand YouTube at all. You know what I mean? But, and now I know all of you are out there going to go look up this French bikini wax thing, aren't you? Don't. I'll tell you what, you won't, you'll feel it. That's all I got to say. Never, never would I allow such a thing. Trimming, I can understand. Ripping it off with wax, I just don't get it. But, so yeah, I really, really loved this movie. It's a really good 7 out of 10. I liked this movie a lot. I like the unique portrayal. I do wish that they had made this rated R. They toned down the kills. The kills were not near as gory as they could be. It's sad that they do that when they could have made this would have been so much better as rated R. And I think that these places that do that, I think they sell themselves short just to get into a theater. And this has no unrated director's cut. So, I mean, if you are going to do that for the theaters so you can bring in the teen audience, I understand, but shouldn't you keep the footage so that you can release a rated R or unrated version for, you know, the collector's sake? Because you're going to make a lot more money, you know. Yeah, so I mean, I really wish they had done that. But even still, this is a really, really great movie, and I really had fun watching it. And I love that video. I did find it on Daily Motion, and so I will put the link to the full uncensored rap video made by the cast called Shark Bite. It's really cute and hilarious, and they're kind of making fun of rap music, but it's like it's kind of funny. You know, I did buy a grill. I think Madonna. I saw Madonna wearing a grill, and I thought, and I did buy a grill, and it actually looked pretty cool. It's sitting around here somewhere. But yeah, I had a grill, and it looked neat. But I mean, just don't get punched in the mouth wearing one of those things. That's all I got to say. But yeah, I really liked this movie. I'll put the link to the trailer, of course. I'll put the link to that video that plays at the end of these credits. I really, really like this movie, Shark Night. Movie number 1 in Shark Week. Thank you very much for tuning in. Love you, miss you. Bye. Always remember, never forget, you are a very, very, very special person, even if you're not a psycho who has stocked a saltwater lake with sharks to make snuff films. You're still special, even if you're not that. Love you, miss you. Bye-bye. See you in the next one. And welcome again to Shark Week.